This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Hey team, we have a new sponsor here at the Crypto Conversation, BitGet, one of the world's leading copy trading cryptocurrency exchanges. Yes, indeed. What happens if you've got the funds to invest, but you don't have the time to keep track of the market? You still want to make smart money moves. What do? Well, copy trading is a popular choice for beginner traders. You can shorten your learning curve by uncovering tips and strategies from more experienced traders. BitGet's copy trading platform has over 80,000 elite traders to choose from and 380,000 followers just like yourself who are already using the BitGet copy trading platform as a potential passive income stream. All it takes is one click. You can subscribe to an elite, profitable strategist, set your limits, automate your orders, and monitor their trades. I've got some links in the show notes below. One link will take you through to the BitGet sign-up page, give you a VIP discount. So learn all about it for yourself thanks to BitGet. And now it is on with the show. Hey folks, Andy here, and yes, firstly, thanks to BitGet for sponsoring the show. As I mentioned, that VIP link to sign up to BitGet is in the show notes, and if you use that link, you can sign up and trade to get a $50 bonus. Yes, indeed, $50 bonus in USDT. So, what are you waiting for? Sign up to BitGet and redeem your $50 in USDT just by following the link in the show notes. My guests today are Liam Bacon. He is the CEO, and Jacob Horgan is the Chief Product Officer, and both Jacob and Liam are co-founders of Aradena, which is a gaming platform. The idea, I think, is to revolutionize competitive strategy gaming using innovative gameplay developments and Web3 to radically improve the player experience. Welcome to the show, Liam and Jacob.
Hey, Andy. It's great to be on here.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Andy. It's great to be here as well. Really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Great to have you guys here. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. We'll get you guys just to briefly introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your professional story and the lead up to getting involved with Web3 gaming. Liam, let's start with you.
Sure, yeah. So me and Jacob actually knew each other before we started this business. We went to university together at the University of Leeds. So we met there in first year quite a while ago now. And we also lived together in second year. I was studying history at the time in my undergraduate, and then I went on to do a postgraduate master's in entrepreneurship at UCL. At the same time as doing that, I started a previous tech company, and we specialized in gamified e-learning. So it's sort of where my more sort of professional experience came in. I've also had a couple of different roles, more based around marketing and growth hacking in the past as well. So that's kind of benefited in this business, and especially in the early days when we first started. I'll let Jake introduce themselves before I come to sort of the story of how we started the company as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so like Liam says, we've known each other quite well. Worked on many different projects and thought experiments in the past. So yeah, we're pretty accustomed to working together, which is great now. But yeah, myself, sort of a background in software development, focused in electrical engineering at university. But found my love for software development and in particular game development whilst I was at university, and knew I definitely wanted to pursue that rather than the slightly more physicsy and math side of things. I definitely had a passion for gaming, always have done. So yeah, that's the natural route for me over the last few years, which has been fantastic. And then also very sort of into blockchain and the NFT and crypto space starting a few years back. So yeah, it was kind of like a perfect culmination of things, I suppose, for myself onto this journey. And yeah, it's quite a fun story of how we started the project and Aradena in general. I think, Liam, you're probably going to tell it a little bit better than I am, so I'll let you tell that one.
All right, well, let's do that. So, Liam, yeah, please tell the story of Aradena. How did this all start to come together?
Yeah, so I'll tell it the full perspective from my side. So this was in summer 2021, and there was like a meetup planned in Bournemouth, which is my hometown, between myself, Jacob, and a few other of our uni friends. And in the week leading up to it, I had received a bombardment of voice notes from Jacob, actually up to the point of him driving down to my house from his, just sort of going into a lot of detail about Web3, but specifically more on like how in the summer of 2021, there was obviously like a big craze around NFTs, and Jacob like was talking about the concept of how NFTs could be used for so much more than what they were at the time. So obviously we had a big craze around like profile picture NFTs, if you remember, sort of like in the early summer 2021 time.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, there was a big boom at that time. And Jacob, with his sort of like more game development head on, was like, there's a huge use case here for gaming, and also specifically in the medieval fantasy genre. So we looked at like a lot of the NFTs that were coming out, which were sort of like fuzzy animals and stuff like that, often without really any utility, sort of like profile pictures. And we came up with the idea of like, well, actually what we could do is we could change the art style here, and we could turn them into like medieval warriors. And they could have an actual use case inside of gaming. And we could apply each of the warriors with stats rather than just properties. So rather than just have like rarities and properties, they could also have stats as well, which would be made up of the different properties, depending on like what weapon it would have, for example, would contribute towards its attack, etc., etc. So we went to the pub to watch an England game. I think it was, I can't remember if it was the Euros or World Cup then. I think it's probably the Euros, wasn't it? Yeah, it would have been. And we were watching the game, and Jake was just speaking to me non-stop about the ideas he had for this. Actually, he was speaking to anybody that would listen, but I was the only one that would probably listen about it. Everyone else was kind of trying to watch the game. Where I was like, this is a really, really good idea. And obviously me and Jake had worked together in the past as well. So I kind of knew the talent he had for the creativity and innovation, I guess.
I think some of our friends thought we were a bit mad because England were winning 4-0 football game, and all we could talk about was Web3 and medieval warriors whilst in the pub. But yeah, we knew we were onto something great, and we were, the passion definitely started from that moment.
Yeah, I love the fact that I'm talking to a couple of UK chaps, and of course, like all good things, they begin over a pint at the pub in England, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much the story.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way for something amazing coming out of Britain or England there.
For sure. So, and just listeners, if you're already intrigued by Aradena, the website is, tell us what the website is, just so listeners can go there and have a look while they're listening, guys.
Yeah, so it's Aradena, ARADENA.io. So if you head to the website, you can check it out. You'll actually be able to go into the product as well. You can just create an account with a very easy email sign-in, and then you can take a look at sort of like the world map. Have a look at a few different game features at the moment. What we've had for about a year now, maybe a little bit longer. We've had like a questing system where players can play like narrative-based quests, which has kind of just been like just something to like offer like our early community members whilst we're actually sort of developing the main game itself, which is now getting very close to the time of release. So if you go on there already, you can create an account and you can start questing your warriors, and there's already a range of different things you can do there. You can read about like the sort of narrative and lore of Aradena. There's quite an extensive lore to it, and a lot of other different cool features in there as well.
Well, just give us the kind of high level vision then for the game and how it works. So it's like it's a trading card strategy, a battlefield tactics type game, but of course utilizing NFTs and the wonderful world of Web3. But yeah, just give us the vision for how this works.
Yeah.
Jacob, do you want to go for that?
Yeah, happily. I can talk about the game all night long, Andy. So it's no problem.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so we've got a team. I mean, the early team, all passionate gamers in general. But we've all got a love for trading card games, especially, and sort of strategy games and kind of games that do make you sort of think a little bit more, and you get that kind of rewardment or sort of that rewarding feeling when you do get that win, because it's kind of down to some clever play. So we've all kind of, a lot of the gamers in the team come from a background of that sort of gaming sort of industry. But we saw kind of a gap in the market for a TCG game for two main reasons. Primary one is TCGs and trading cards lend themselves extremely well to Web3 tech with the collectible kind of nature of them. And we saw that with some of those early kind of like the NBA player collectible cards and some of those other things. So it was clear use case, clear, like it just worked. They really went well together. And also then from a more kind of just gaming point of view, we've recently seen sort of very successful games like Slay the Spire kind of take deck building aspects and trading card game aspects and combine them with a slightly different genre. So Slay the Spire is kind of like a rogue-like kind of dungeon crawler game. Hard to explain, but I'm sure some people listening would have played it. And it was just a huge success, kind of combining slightly different genres. So what we wanted to do was, do something similar and combine a TCG game with some of our favorite sort of game mechanics from tactical combat and strategy games. So we kind of wanted to bring those tactical strategy combat games down into a concise, digestible game mode where it's quite quick and easy and fun to play, and you don't have to commit to a really massive, long strategy campaign. So what we've done is we've combined all of the best bits with trading card games with a hex-based tactical battler. So when you play your cards, they actually turn into 3D units and they get deployed onto the 3D hex battlefield. And you can actually move them around like they're sort of, alive units, and you're commanding your army when they're on the battlefield. So it adds like two really key parts to the game. You kind of get that extra visual immersion that you receive with a 3D game and 3D units, animations, visual effects. You can kind of, throw it all in there. And then you also get an extra layer of new strategy for those players that love the TCG games. They actually get something new, a new experience to try and figure out and learn and become the best at. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of play testing, primarily with trading card gamers, and it's been going down really well recently. So it's really, really exciting to see.
Awesome. And I was just looking through, there's Every Realm put out a State of Blockchain Gaming 2023 report. And, some of the insights from the report, they say that the global gaming market is expected to reach 218 billion by next year, even though at the moment, I think, it won't come as a surprise to you guys, but, the active number of gaming users or wallets and Web3 at the moment is down a little bit this year after, we saw a massive influx of new users, of course, in 2021. But it said also the most popular blockchain gaming genre in 2022 was strategy, followed by role-playing and adventure. I'm sure that resonates with you guys.
Yeah, so one thing that I'll just touch on there is like a little bit about how I think the space is developing. And to explain a little bit about, the sort of first wave, I suppose, that we call it. Like when we speak to people, we often talk about like the first wave of blockchain gaming, which came that first phase, sort of like one of the main leaders of that was obviously Axie Infinity, who made headlines all around the world.
Yes.
Very, very different type of gaming, very different type of business model, and very different thing in a way. So in that first phase, what you really had was, it was primarily the players were coming in for financial incentives. Like that was the primary cause of the sort of like the influx. It wasn't so much like the game quality was particularly high. People were coming in with the expectation of financial rewards, and that's kind of what led to, unsustainable ecosystems for the most part. I think there's a couple of examples of ecosystems that have been pretty sustainable. Gods Unchained is quite a good example. Also another trading card game, also on IMX as well, like us. But in general, I think we saw a lot of fairly unsustainable ecosystems, and we could get into more detail later about how we've designed ours very differently from a lot of those first generation games. But the key point is now is what's happened is a lot of funding came into the space at the end of 2021 and the start of 2022 off the back of that first wave of blockchain gaming. And what's been happening in the space, I think, is there's been a lot of people similar to us who have been building out higher quality games, basically, and building games where actually people want to play them. So ever since the start for us, that the core thing was that we knew that the value proposition for people coming in had to be around the gameplay itself. Like it had to be that people would be willing to sort of play the game for the entertainment value rather than the expectation of receiving financial rewards. And that's kind of just like how any good economy would work. You need like people that, if you have more people that are just going to be purely net extracted from the ecosystem, then the ecosystem can't be sustainable. So you have to have the majority of people within that ecosystem who are willing to pay for entertainment value. Like that's the sort of core principle behind it. And in order to do that, you need to create gameplay that is genuinely fun to play, genuinely got addictive core loops, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's what we're going to start seeing now in the next wave of blockchain gaming, which I think is, you know, slowly starting to pick up now as we see higher quality games release. I think we'll actually be really one of the early ones and one of the people leading the charge in that sense. I think a lot of people are still, a lot of studios in the space are still very much in development. Whereas for us now, we're approaching closed beta launch in like 2 weeks, and open beta launch sort of like end of July, start of August sort of time at the moment. So we'll be one of the early ones in that sense, in terms of like the new wave of blockchain games that are actually like can compete with Web2 games on the quality of the gameplay.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And you're exactly right, Liam, you know, because Axie Infinity was kind of famously, the gameplay was not particularly exciting, and it was a little bit draining, really. But the appeal of Axie Infinity, of course, was also famously, you know, a lot of players and perhaps, you know, less developed or poorer countries saw it as an opportunity to take advantage of those kind of play to earn gameplay mechanics, which was kind of viable for a little while, but not sustainable in the long term. So what you're talking about now then is, you know, sustainable game economy design, right? So maybe just, yeah, I mean, dig into it a little bit more, just anything you like in terms of, yeah, how you see a sustainable game economy, coming to life.
Yeah, sure. I can take that one for you, Andy, because that comes right back to product really more than anything else, to be honest with you. So the basic answer is it just comes back to sort of good game design. You kind of, whether it's Web3 or Web2, you still need a good game design and a good game economy to keep people kind of retained and monetized. There are obviously very sort of different things that Web3 brings to the table, but the real foundation and core of it just starts with a good game design economy. And that just comes from good game designers and kind of using the tools and the known strategies and systems that are already kind of tested and proven. And I mean, the game designers on my team will kind of hate me for summarizing it just like this. But at the end of the day, you need to have more sinks than you have sources. And those sinks, and what I mean by that is the sinks are kind of when people pay for things, so that's the sink of the currency, and a source is when maybe they would get awarded for currency or any assets in the game. So that's a very primal way of explaining it, but you know that's the number one thing you have to make sure you've got. So what we saw with those kind of Axie economies and things like that, just the sources of the token, like the emissions of the token, were just, you know, completely uncontrolled and almost like, yeah, you know, unlimited. So one really key feature, there's lots of different angles I can touch on, but one really key feature of our economy is that any kind of rewards of the token are going to be in very controlled, limited time events. So they won't be, you know, just purely daily extraction events. It's going to be limited time sort of tournaments where people can come and enter the tournament, and it's going to be purely skill based as well. So, you know, you will get rewarded for playing the game by becoming a better player and having better strategies. And then when it comes around to those limited time event tournaments, you can enter them and you're going to stand a better chance if you've put in the groundwork, you know, through the week and maybe ranked up and got a little bit of a better sort of position for the tournament. So that's a really crucial part of it, of our particular game design that I just want to make clear. And then we could kind of go a bit deeper, maybe perhaps if you've got particular areas, but a really key part of ours is that we use kind of like a dual economy system. So we have a silver economy and a gold economy that we refer to. And basically, the way of looking at this is the silver economy is a game assets only. So it's nothing to do with Web3 or crypto. And the gold economy is crypto. So it's an ERC20 token, the gold token. And any gold assets that we refer to in the game, they are actually NFTs. So the reason we do this is it, one, facilitates free-to-play players. So that's a very big aspect of our game design. We want to open it up to as many people as possible and kind of sort of, get those numbers up. So it allows us to have free-to-play players by introducing them onto the silver economy. They can play, they can earn the silver currency, and they can use that to purchase silver assets. They are game assets only. So they can't extract that. And basically, what will happen is players will play the game, and some of those players will want to become what we class as more premium players or a gold economy player, and they'll want to buy different assets. They want to actually invest into the game, and they'll actually want to invest into the Web3 ecosystem, and that's when they can interact with the gold economy, and they can sort of get their gold token, and they can purchase cosmetics, card packs, etc., many different things, and interact with some of the other kind of more advanced features of the game. So yeah, they're the kind of two really key parts about our economy. There's obviously a lot more finer details, but they're the main ones to know.
Got it. So the silver is the in-game currency, just designed to use in-game only, and but the gold currency has a little bit more of a premium and is a crypto token that can exist outside the game on Web3 rails as well.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So we facilitate it for those Web2 free-to-play players, and also we've got everything a Web3 kind of crypto player needs as well.
And so, but players can still they can earn those gold tokens. They're just a little bit harder to accumulate, I suppose.
That's exactly it. Yeah, we're a little bit more. We sort of, esports is quite a widely used term, and it's different things, but that's how we kind of want to position ourselves a little bit more. It's skill-based earning competitions, and nothing like those, extraction sort of economies.
Let's just get some more details on that. So there's a token sale coming up. So it'd be good for people to know a little bit more about when that happens and how it works. So yeah, what's the details on the token sale?
Yeah, so the token sale will be going live somewhere around mid-June. We're soon going to release the exact date for that. People can get involved through one of the launch pads that we're just currently finalizing at the moment. We're also finalizing exchanges. We're looking to likely list on Gate.io, as well as potentially another one or two centralized exchanges, as well as also a couple of decentralized exchanges as well. In terms of what it actually is, so it's basically the launch of Aradena Gold, which is our premium game currency, as Jacob spoke about earlier on when we talked about our ecosystem. We wanted to create an ecosystem where we had the in-game silver coins, and then also the premium currency, which is the Aradena Gold coin. The significance of that is a few different things. One really important thing, as Jacob mentioned before, is that's only available to earn in limited time events. So we have a much better ability to control the token emissions on that, which is sort of one of the key things around the sustainability of that token. And then the second thing is all of the utilities in game. So like purchasing things from the store, using it on a variety of different in-game features, et cetera, et cetera. We'll actually be releasing a Medium article pretty soon that releases a lot more information on the utility of that token as well, which you'll be able to check out. Just stay in touch on Twitter and Discord to find out more about that. And then there'll also, as Jacob mentioned before, there'll also be ways for people to earn free airdrops of that token as well, which we'll be releasing details on shortly. So if you were to head into our Discord, there's ways in which you can sort of support the community and engage with the community in order to earn free airdrops of those tokens as well. So for people who may not have the liquidity at the moment, there's still ways for those guys to get involved.
Awesome. Let's talk about, I suppose, adoption or user acquisition as you guys, lead up to the full launch or the beta launch first. How are you going about, I suppose, marketing the game, attracting those initial users? How is that all coming together?
Yeah, so we've actually been doing a lot of thinking about this recently, and really trying to understand like the initial target segment and how we build out from there. So the long-term mission for the company, what we've always said is the goal is to onboard millions of traditional gamers into Web3 and into Web3 gaming. Like, that is the end goal of what we want to achieve. But in the sort of like preliminary stages, whilst we're in open beta of the game, it makes sense for us to initially put more focus on targeting Web3 gamers, whilst leaving ourselves open to traditional gamers as well. So what I mean by that is basically removing all barriers to entry for traditional gamers. So traditional gamers can come in from the start. So as Jake talked about before, is the key part of that is the free-to-play model. So you don't need to purchase an asset to play the game. You can just come in, sign up and start playing. And similar vein to that is reducing the technical barriers to entry, so that they don't need to create a crypto wallet to start playing the game. They can just come in and sign up with an email address or a social sign-in and immediately start playing the game. And then you sort of focus on onboarding them into the Web3 once they're already within the game ecosystem, and gamifying that process as much as possible. So that's sort of like how the route looks for a traditional gamer. But then in terms of like focusing your marketing strategy, and in particular your marketing spend, it makes sense in the initial stages to focus on Web3 gamers, because they'll likely have the lowest cost to convert for us. They're already sort of exposed to Web3 elements, they're already exposed to Web3 gaming, so therefore their cost to convert will likely be lower. So that comes down to a variety of different, like in terms of actual marketing activities, a variety of different things. Like let's say in particular, like KOLs will be a big part of the strategy. So we're looking at onboarding a lot of streamers. We're actually looking at onboarding streamers both in Web3 gaming. So let's say, for example, like Gods Unchained streamers and KOLs, but also streamers in traditional gaming as well, to try and create the correct branding that we want, which is another key element of our go-to-market strategy is kind of how we talk about ourselves, how we brand ourselves, which comes back to the point that I made before around the core value proposition being around the gameplay itself. So that the branding for us is that we don't really talk a great deal around, NFTs or tokens in the initial, like sort of the initial branding and the initial like customer acquisition strategies. We really focus on the gameplay being the core value proposition. But then the idea is that you essentially, I think there's maybe like a little bit of a misconception in the space of some people where they sort of think about, do we target Web3 gamers or do we target traditional gamers, without really seeing the bigger picture where both can actually support the other in some ways. So let's say right now that we're focused slightly more on Web3 gamers in the early stages because we think they'll be easier to convert and lower cost to convert. Leaving ourselves more open to traditional gamers, branding ourselves as a higher quality game, and having the long-term goal to continue improving the game, adding new features, and turning more attention towards onboarding traditional gamers at a larger scale in the longer term. That creates a more attractive value proposition for the Web3 gamers as well. And what I mean by that is, if you're a Web3 gamer that comes in open beta and you start purchasing NFT game assets and you start earning the token from competitive gameplay, you will have the expectation that those assets and that token will go up in value over the long term as we start to bring in more users and as we start to gain more mass adoption. The demand for the token and the demand for those assets will be higher. So that element of long-term speculation about the game going more mainstream and getting more mainstream adoption actually supports that value proposition for the Web3 gamers as well. And then obviously providing short-term value to the early adopters as well. So for example, let's say we're giving out prize pools and there's less people playing the game, there's a higher chance you'll get larger prize pools in the competitive tournaments. And similarly as well, when you're purchasing assets, there's slightly less demand, and there would be in the longer term when there's more people and therefore more demand for the assets. So therefore, you would expect your assets to rise in price. So there's like sort of short-term value in that sense as well.
Yeah, great thoughts there, Liam, and you make some great points. And I think that is the right strategy, for Web3 games and similar games to what you guys are doing. The right focus is just to create an amazing game experience, and if it just happens to be Web3, then fantastic. But I was just looking through your Twitter before, and the pinned tweet at the top of your Twitter illustrates this point really well. So you write, there's no such thing as Web3 gaming, just gaming enhanced by Web3 technology. We're here to build a great game that is fun to play. And then you have this video on that tweet just showing some highlights from the recent build Aradena Battlegrounds. So maybe just, yeah, it looks really good. So people, if you just want to go to the Aradena Twitter, you can have a look at that tweet and you'll see the video that I'm talking about. Just, yeah, do you want to use that that video just to kind of talk through some of the battleground elements, because it looks fantastic.
Yeah, I'll let Jake go into more detail on the game itself, but just before that, I'll just say two things. One is the fact that on that pin tweet, the gameplay that you'll see is actually a little bit outdated now. The build is moving forwards at such a rapid pace right now. So you'll actually see something go out next week, which will look very different in terms of the golems will be replaced. There'll be a lot more like VFX and visual effects added in. And also you'll see like the Colosseum in the background. So you'll see a lot of the visual effects come in. And then the second thing, just before I let Jake go into the game, is just on that, the copy that's there, the sort of thing of no such thing as Web3 gaming, just gaming enhanced by Web3 technology. The future that we see is it will get to the point where we just talk about gaming, and like Web3 will just sort of be like an expectation of the players. Like it will get to the point where, or we believe it will get to the point where it will be expected and it will be common practice for players to actually own their assets, to actually have that asset ownership. And that's the direction that we're moving into.
I love it.
Yeah. I'll just sort of carry on from where Liam left off there, and just say, that, I mean, I'm not sure when this podcast goes live, so maybe by the time it does, there might be a much more upgraded video than that on our Twitter, I think, because we have literally just got a very impressive build delivered from the devs this week. And we've got a new release build coming next week on Friday as well, which is very exciting. But yeah, I can just kind of, riff a little bit more on the gameplay. So what we really wanted to do was, keep all of the best bits of trading card games. So one of the reasons for that is trading card games are awesome, and there's a huge market of people that love them. But also that market of people that already love them, we wanted to keep the cost to convert those guys over to our game as low as possible. Because we are adding a new element, we are adding a new kind of twist on it. We didn't really feel we needed to change much of the TCG side of things, because people just know what they like, and it's sort of tested and proven mechanics. So for any TCG players out there, we've used the Hearthstone mana ramp system. So on your turn 1, you get 1 mana. And on turn 2, you get 2 mana, and so on like that. And mana is what you use to deploy the cards to the battlefield. So, you'll have a range of cards in your deck. 25 is the number. And these cards will be, vary in power abilities. So, a sort of quite a weak, cheap unit will be about one mana, and you can usually play that on your first turn, and that ramps up to some of those bigger cards being 6 mana, being much stronger. And that's something we have done slightly different, is our mana goes from 1 to 6. This kind of ties in with, we want games to be snappy, basically. So, we've seen the success of Marble Snap recently, and lots of other mobile games and casual games. They're very quick paced, very fast paced. People live very busy lives nowadays, and we honed in on what our target customers are, and through market research and our lots of discussions, the players we're going after, we know they don't want to sort of sit down and play a game for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. They kind of don't have the time. They want to play a game that they know is going to be over, roughly 15 minutes max. They can play it maybe on their way somewhere whilst they're waiting for something, maybe a couple of games in the evening. So one thing we wanted to do is keep our average match time low. It's 8 minutes at the moment, which is fantastic. And we actually have a mechanic inside of our game that puts a maximum cap on the game length. It can be tweaked with a few interesting cards if you have those in your deck, but usually the cap is about 15-16 minutes. So that's the maximum time limit. So that's really important for us as well. And that's done by the golems, which are in the middle. So I'll just quickly explain. These golems are basically the player's health. So in other TCGs, you'll have maybe your hero, like in Hearthstone. And once that dies, you lose the game, or once you kill the opponents, you win the game. Our golems act very similar. But what they do is they actually kind of, walk towards each other into the middle of the battlefield, and they start doing damage to each other in the middle of the battlefield. So this gives players like a sense of urgency, and they need to go in and they need to get into the battle. So there's no running and hiding in Aradena. You've got to fight. There's no sort of good turtling strategies, which is what we wanted. And then other people that might watch the video or play the game, you might notice subtly that it's kind of got 3 channels or 3 routes. So this has taken some inspiration from successful MOBAs like League of Legends and Dota, and also Marvel Snap again, because it's very much the hot game nowadays, with their 3 locations on the board. It basically, even though there's a battlefield and it's a hex battlefield, there's kind of 3 primary routes you can take inside of it. You can go down the middle, attack the opponent's golem, or you can go down to one of the sides of the maps, and there's control points there, which basically give you advantages inside of the battlefield. So, it's a very subtle way to give the players sort of choices and kind of areas to fight over, but, not overwhelming. So it's still kind of a fun, quick, and easy to sort of pick up game. And that's, one of our biggest things that we've based this whole game design on, is easy to pick up, but sort of hard to master. So there's, you can get playing straight away, but there's some really deep strategy and sort of tactics you can learn with it.
Makes sense. I like it. Sorry, go.
Just a note on that as well is, the golems were a build iteration that we made this year, and like Jake said, that kind of stops people from hiding and having to get into the battle, which was unfortunate for me because my tactic in the games before that was to camp, to set everything up in my side of the battlefield and to camp. And then Jacob made a build iteration, and now I can no longer do that. So
I made the game design decision purely on that because I wanted to run strategy.
And you guys said at the beginning, you're talking about the popularity of medieval games, swords, battles, spears. And that's kind of that's one way of describing what you guys are doing, I guess. Why do you think that medieval moment in history is so popular in gaming?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to answer that, actually, and I feel like you could probably take it into why we chose medieval gaming afterwards, Liam, because we did do a lot of analysis on this. But why it's so popular is actually, I'm not sure is the complete answer to you, Andy, but like, I love medieval fantasy myself personally. I'm a huge fan. Like, I'll watch Witcher, Game of Thrones, like I'm watching Vikings again at the moment. I can't get enough of it.
I was going to say that it's just Vikings is, people love to watch Vikings, they love to watch Game of Thrones. It just makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely the fantasy element as well. Yeah. Like just like rather than being like purely medieval, it's definitely the medieval fantasy rather than just purely medieval. Like the fantasy element is definitely what gets people excited. Adding in mages, adding in spells. That's what, like, and it also allows you to create much more exciting gameplay and game design as well, because like what you can do with the strategy cards and the spell cards and stuff gets really interesting.
Yeah,
that comes like escapism, but I mean, it probably leads quite nicely just quickly on to why we chose it, Liam, because I do feel like there is there's a sort of group of people out there that do tend to like that sort of genre and those sort of games and that sort of stuff. And we actually drew quite a few I can't think of what the word is, but connections basically between that sort of demographic of people and also the demographic of people that are involved in Web3 and crypto and NFTs and kind of, I suppose, the early adopters to this whole space. We actually drew a lot of similarities and connections between those people and the people that love that sort of medieval fantasy genre. So that's one of many reasons why we chose medieval fantasy for our game, actually.
Yeah, there's quite a few overlaps. So first thing is the fact that most CCGs tend to be on the fantasy spectrum somewhere. Like the large majority of CCGs will be somewhere on the fantasy spectrum. Something else that we kind of noticed is that a lot of them tend to be more on like the sort of high fantasy side, whereas what we want to do, differentiate ourselves a little bit, was to go more down the sort of like gritty medieval fantasy sort of vibe rather than be going like too high fantasy or cartoony. And I think that you can kind of see I don't know if it's a shift, but like the sort of increasing popularity of that side of things with recent titles just in like mainstream media, like Game of Thrones, for example. Like they've sort of gone down like the more gritty medieval fantasy route rather than like the sort of like real high fantasy sort of side. And that obviously was an incredibly popular series. So that sort of was where part of the inspiration comes from. And then on the demographic note that Jake just sort of made is that there's the tendency when you're looking at like CCG gamers on a large scale, the majority of them, not all, but the majority of them will be in the segment where they have kids. Quite an interesting stat, where the majority of them will have kids, normally quite young kids as well, and normally be like something like in their 30s or something like that, and they'll have kids. And for us, it kind of made sense, to go more down the sort of gritty medieval fantasy route for that segment as well. So like me personally, like although I enjoy playing Hearthstone, I look at it and I think that's not really like the sort of genre that I would find super interesting. It's a little bit too high fantasy and cartoony for me. Like it sort of seems like it's like aimed towards like a sort of younger demographic than myself. Whereas I feel like what we're doing on the more like gritty medieval fantasy side of things, I think is a lot more, I don't know, relevant and exciting for the demographic that tends to like CCGs, and also very popular in mainstream media at the moment as well.
I like it. Makes sense. All right, team. As we finish off this part of the podcast, again, do you want to just both, make the case for why people should come and check out Aradena and potentially get involved, how they can access the first release, where the beta is at, and what they can expect going forward?
Yeah, so I'll touch on it first and let Jacob add anything else he wants. So we will be releasing the date for closed beta soon. So keep your eyes open on our Twitter and on our Discord. So if you head to our Twitter, which is Aradena Warrior, Aradena Warrior, then you'll be able to see our link tree in the bio as well, which has the links to all of our other platforms. Discord is where most of our activity goes on. So come and join the Discord, say hello. That's the best way to find out more about the project. And also we've got a pretty welcoming community there. So if you put a message into the general chat and say hello, then people will happily help you out. In terms of the roadmap, so our closed beta launch will be early June, very early June, and the date will be announced soon, so stay in touch for that. In order to access the closed beta, you need to own one of the Warrior NFTs, which is like the original collection we released, and they're sort of commanding warrior in-game. The collection is called the Warriors of Aradena. There's also the Women of Aradena as well. So you need one of those NFTs in order to access closed beta. And then when we go into open beta and really scale up the user base, as Jake mentioned before, that's when we'll integrate the free-to-play model, and it will just be open the floodgates and anybody will be able to play. But until then, the way to play closed beta is to own an NFT asset. You can also get involved through our Discord, and then we're also going to be doing our token launch sometime in the middle of June as well. Again, date to be announced very shortly. So that's another way which you can get involved. You can find out more information about that on our Discord as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, just add a couple of last little points there. There's if you come into the Discord, there's going to be live streams of the game. Our game designers there playing it, answering questions, and there will also be some competitions and ways to earn that closed beta access through other means as well. So make sure you come along, check it out, give us your feedback, and get involved.
Thank you, chaps. Let's go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll finish off, and we will run Jacob and Liam through the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round. Back in one moment.
Look, we'd all like to say we're pro traders, but the reality is we're probably not. But with BitGet, you don't have to be. Why? Because BitGet is the world's largest copy trading exchange. Instead of you muddling through it on your own, feel confident. BitGet allows you to automatically copy trade from over 80,000 elite traders with 24/7 support on our secure copy trading platform. Start following expert traders on bitget.com. Check for details in the show notes and join BitGet today.
All right, we are back, and I'm with Liam Bacon and Jacob Horgan. Liam and Jacob are, of course, the co-founders of Aradena. Very, very interesting Web3 medieval fantasy game. launching soon as a token launch as well. We've heard all about that. Yeah, Jacob, Liam, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Let's go.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome.
Are we in competition? Are we taking turns? Is it me versus Jake?
I think in the spirit of card games, we'll just take turns. So what we'll do is I'm just gonna run some questions at you. I'll direct. We'll take it in turns. So it's just a bit of fun. So Liam, let's do you first. Question for you, Liam, is where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I would say that I sit more on the side of multi-chain. I think there's a lot of different chains at the moment which offer a lot of potential going forwards into the future.
Very sensible answer. All right, Jacob, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
Blimey, wow, you got to be quick on this. My firmest, I don't know if this is a great one, but my firmest is that Ethereum will actually be the most prominent and most successful chain in the long term. I just think there's so much infrastructure there that just creates everything for the rest of it. I just think that is going to be here to stay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I would double up on that as well. I'd double up on the Ethereum fanboy.
We have a double down on Ethereum. I like it. All right. Liam, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So, with that in mind, anything you like here, but, Web3, gaming, Aradena, what does it start to look like in 10 years' time?
I love that quote and love that you've mentioned it. And completely agree with it. I think that in the next 10 years, we'll see Web3 start to revolutionize the way that we can interact online in a variety of different ways. I think it'll completely intertwine in social fabric in a lot of ways in the way that we interact on the internet. I think gaming is obviously one massive use case, and that's the first one right now. But I think that we'll start to see sort of more merging between gaming, social and education experiences as well. That's kind of like when you think about what metaverses are, it's kind of like the intertwining of gamified and social experiences. And I think that trend will just continue to accelerate in the next 10 years. It's one of the really big ones.
Yep.
Could I just add on? Sorry, Andy, add on to that because I love that quote.
Go for it.
Love that quote as well. But I would also just like to say, the amount we've done at the team and this project Aradena in the last 2 years has absolutely amazed me as well. So I think with that quote kind of resonated just with me there, because we're always just in awe of how much our team gets done every day. And I just kind of want to take that opportunity to big up our team internally, because they go above and beyond. We've done insane amounts in the last 2 years, and it's so impressive.
Yeah, this just got faster and faster. Yeah, got faster and faster. No one's allowed to sleep in the Aradena team, unfortunately.
All right, here's another quote for you, Jacob. Sci-fi author William Gibson famously said, of course, that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So with that in mind, Jacob, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
Wow, yeah. The one that always comes to mind, I'm probably not that groundbreaking anymore, but every now and then I'm just kind of out with my friends or doing something, and I'm just sending, something important happens and I send a text. And, we're in the medieval fantasy gaming genre. So, the ability to just send a text and basically telepathically talk with anyone you want to at any moment, even though it's been around for a while, I think that is absolutely crazy still. And that's the sort of thing that if you read maybe more fantasy books, I read loads when I was younger, only the wizards would have that sort of power to be able to somehow send a message over miles of distance. And that was a very, very, strong power. So it's not quite future and sci-fi, but that actually, for me, every now and then I stop and I'm still amazed just by how much we've advanced on that. So, there's plenty of other bigger things, but that one kind of gets me every now and then.
Soon going to get to the point where we will have a Neuralink in our brain and be able to do it without even sending a message. You have to actually telepathically send a brain message to you.
Yeah, once Elon figures out how we can get past the fingers and thumbs kind of roadblock.
Indeed. I think it was Arthur C. Clarke who said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and that has never been more true in today's world.
That is one of my most favourite quotes, Andy. So I'm really glad you said that. I've actually got that written down in one of my notepads.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that.
All right, time to finish this off, gentlemen. I normally finish off by asking guests for their favourite piece of sci-fi, but with you guys, I think we'll do fantasy. So, Liam, we'll do you first. What is your favourite fantasy? You can choose a book, a film, TV show, whatever you like. Recommend some fantasy.
Main thing for me when I was younger was Lord of the Rings. That was my real obsession. Like watching the films many times, and also playing the games many times. If anyone had Lord of the Rings Twin Tower game on PS2, that was top quality.
Nice. All right, Jacob.
Yeah, that was a fantastic game, and I did have that, Liam. I'm sorry, Andy, but I'm actually going to curveball here, and because you've mentioned sci-fi a couple of times. For me, it's Dune. It's Dune.
Yes.
I'm just going to go back on the sci-fi. I read Dune for the first time in the COVID lockdown, and I picked it up, and I don't think I put it back down because I wasn't working, and it was fantastic. And I just blitzed through the book, and I've read it again since. It's just an incredible book, and obviously the recent movie done it justice as well, which I was very happy about. So that's Dune.
Yeah, Jake is as much a sci-fi nerd as fantasy, actually. I know Jake's got a special place in his heart for sci-fi as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, guilty.
I see the next Dune movie is coming soon, isn't it?
Yeah. It's looking good.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, gentlemen. Let's just finish off again. Tell people where they can go to keep up to date with everything that you guys are building with Aradena, and the details again of that token sale, please.
Yep. So you can head to our website, aradena.io, or you can head to our Twitter. Probably best to head to the Twitter because the link tree is in the bio. So if you head to the Twitter, which is Aradena Warrior, if you just search Aradena, I'm sure it will come up as the top result. Then you can head into the link tree, which can take you to the Discord. The Discord is where most of the activity will happen in terms of like competitions, getting involved, etc., etc. So that's the best place to hang out. And then the token sale will be going live somewhere in mid-June. The date will be released very shortly, alongside a pretty cool token release trailer as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And there's ways to get involved. Even if you don't have liquidity, you can head into Discord, and there'll be ways to participate in the community to get involved in that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Liam. Thank you, Jacob. All the best, and bye for now.
Cheers, Andy.
Thank you very much, Andy.
That's it. Bye-bye.
All right, there you go. How good was that? That was fun. I really enjoyed talking to Liam and Jacob. And yeah, Aradena looks fantastic, actually. So yeah, if you want to keep up to date, the website, of course, aradena.io. And yeah, all things Web3 gaming, medieval, swords, axes, spears, and spellcasting. Gotta love it. All right. Well, thank you for listening to the show, listeners. Please remember to make sure you are subscribed to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. But that is today's episode. Thanks, team. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. See ya.